So the papers coming in, gentlemen. Let's start with the Mail. The back of the Mail says Gallagher at the double to break Palace hearts. Miguel, always interesting when a player scores against his former club. Of course, he was on loan at Palace for the best part of a couple of seasons. Are you going to celebrate? Are you not going to celebrate? He was in the crowd. He was giving it some. It meant a lot to him. And in the end, a great result for Chelsea.
Yeah, he didn't follow Declan Rice. I didn't notice, actually, with Rice's non-celebration yesterday, how the common body language there always seems to be to put the hands down. But yeah, you're right. None of that with Gallagher. And I suppose that's partly because he was on loan, but also partly because I think what it meant to Chelsea on the evening, where this was about the necessity of winning. Because it did, especially when Palace went ahead, it did feel this was going to be basically typical of this season under Pochettino so far, where they'd follow a good result with an immediate step back, you know, having done the really hard part of beating Villa away last week to get through to the next round of the Cup. And yeah, it just would have been so Chelsea to follow that with another dispiriting result. But instead, they generated pretty important momentum. And I think you could see the value of that and what it meant to them in Gallagher's reaction.
Yeah, I mean, Andy, back of the Telegraph talks about the smiling assassin, Conor Gallagher, really enjoying himself. I mean, to pick up on Miguel's point, it would have been could have been at one stage, in about the 89th minute, a very different story, this. Squandered chances for Chelsea, same old, with no one able to put the ball in the back of the net. But all's well that ends well, I guess.
Yeah, and the irony is that, you know, it was widely suggested that Gallagher might actually be sold because of his value in terms of what he would have brought in profit to comply with the profit and sustainability rules. But really, in the fans' eyes, Gallagher's become a little bit of an emblem of this Chelsea revival, and he's been one of the positives of this season. But what I did like about Chelsea today is I was at the Villa game when they won at Villa 3-1 in the FA Cup, and now it looks as though you know what they're doing. There looks to be a little bit of stability, a little bit of balance. I like the Chilwell and the Gusto on the left and the right. Caicedo and Fernandez now, I think, once they've been given time, will establish a good central defensive partnership. So it looks as though Pochettino is getting to grips with such a disparate squad, to be frank. And they look as though now they've got a pattern. They look as though they've got some momentum. So an incredibly important result for them tonight, incredibly important second half. And of course, the transfer success of all many transfers is Cole Palmer, who 2 assists in added time and is having a sensational start to his career at Chelsea.
Yeah, Palmer was excellent again, wasn't he? Miguel, do you kind of concur with Andy's assessment? We're starting to see this Pochettino side take shape.
Yeah, now I have to say, I watched them. I was at the game where they drew 4-4 with City back in November or so, and I did think, right, it's finally coming together for Pochettino at Chelsea, only for it to drop back. And obviously they've had a tough kind of January, February period, but I think that's a reflection of the youth of the side as much as anything else. Because, I mean, what do you get from young players? They're not quite developed enough yet to, to fully apply their ability all the time, which is why, almost by definition, they're inconsistent, bar the truly, truly special ones. And that's something Pochettino has to work around. I think, as we say, having someone of the seniority of Chilwell back is important. It balances out some of that youth. But I do think there's a wider point as well, where if you actually look back to Pochettino's first season at Tottenham. Now, we all remember Tottenham for, I suppose, drastic overperformance over about 3 or 4 seasons when Spurs got more points than really should have, with what was a young team. But in that very first season in 14-15, they were pretty much as inconsistent as Chelsea are now for the first few months. Now, of course, it was a different makeup of squad, but I do wonder, does that speak to just maybe the length of time it took for Pochettino to impose his approach? And maybe, given it started to turn around January, February that season in 14-15, will we see the same now? Again, there are more variables because of the odd way this squad has been put together. But at least I suppose maybe a sign or a cause for some optimism.
Yeah, Andy, you mentioned Cole Palmer. I mean, he started as a kind of false 9 and he kind of dropped deep, and Jackson kind of pushed up. I mean, we talked about the lack of a real kind of good old-fashioned Didier Drogba-like number 9 at Chelsea for a little while now, but we're starting to see this kind of false 9 and some fluidity in Chelsea's attack all of a sudden.
Yes, exactly. I mean, pre-Erling Haaland, City didn't need an out-and-out, standard centre forward in the Drogba form or in the Haaland form, and scored 100 goals in a season. So there's more than one ways to skin a goal scoring cat, so to speak. And Chelsea are doing it at the moment. As I say, they had that again against Villa, the game I was at, and in tonight's game. They had threat coming from Fernandez is now becoming a threat. He took that goal superbly tonight, scored a great set piece in midweek. And I think Caicedo now, once he gets accustomed to playing with Caicedo, he will be encouraged to get further forward, and he is a threat going forward. So I don't necessarily think the clamour for an out-and-out, rather old-fashioned number 9 is justified, to be perfectly honest with you. I think they will be able to get by with that one.